And welcome to the 2022 City Council Candidate Forum presented by the Chico Chamber of Commerce. My name is Karina Conley, and I have the great honor of serving as the Chief Executive Officer for the Chico Chamber of Commerce and your moderator for this evening's event. First and foremost, I'd like to extend an immense debt of gratitude to our community members and candidates for their participation in this forum. The purpose of the Candidate Forum is to provide the City of Chico voters an opportunity to hear the candidates discuss their positions on issues of importance to our city. This event is open to the public and being recorded and is live streamed on YouTube. The Candidate Forum adheres to nonpartisan, unbiased, and impartial format established by the Chico Chamber of Commerce Executive Committee. Specific rules and procedures governing the candidates forum were provided to each candidate. The candidate forum will be presented in the following format. Each candidate will have 30 seconds to present an opening statement. Then a total of 4 questions will be presented to the candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question. In closing, each candidate will have 30 seconds to present their closing statement. Those candidates unavailable to participate in this evening's event were provided an opportunity to submit a pre-recorded 30-second opening statement and a 30-second closing statement. Each candidate will be presenting in order of the districts. We'll be commencing with district number 2 and concluding with district number 6. So without further ado, let's begin. I would like to introduce the 2022 City Council candidates. We have Morgan Kennedy from District 2 and Casey Reynolds. We have Dale Bennett from District 3 and Monica McDaniel. For District 4, we have Addison Winslow and Nicole Nava. For District 6, we have Jessica Gianola and Tom Overbeck. So the first district that we're going to start with is District 2. I'm going to yield the floor to Morgan, and please start the timer.
So my name is Morgan Kennedy, and I have lived in District 2 of Chico, or the north end of Chico, for a little over 10 years now. I was born in Chico and then raised in Paradise and moved back down to Chico as a young adult. So down the hill and on the ridge is basically my entire universe, and I really love it here. I have been married for about 10 years. I have 1 biological child, and my husband and I have also been foster parents.
And time.
That was quick.
Thank you, Morgan, so much. We appreciate your opening statements and remarks. Moving on to district number 3, Dale Bennett.
I was born in Chico, native. I've been here almost my entire life. I did spend a little time out in the Midwest for a couple of years. I've been in property management my entire life, managing enclosed regional shopping centers. And my civic involvement includes many terms on different boards and commissions. So I have a great deal of experience. And I think the most important item is experience. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for staying to the time. The next candidate will be Monica McDaniel.
Hi, I'm Monica McDaniel. I am running for City Council to represent District 3. I've lived in Old District 3 for 14 years and New District 3 for 1 year. I'm a respected leader in arts and arts education for this area. I've achieved a high degree of leadership in various boards and commissions and nonprofit organizations as well as profit organizations that I've been involved with. And I'm hoping to serve the Chico community at large on the Chico City Council for District 3. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are going to move on to district number 4, and we will go ahead and start with Addison Winslow.
Chico has a housing crisis, and the areas that house the most people most efficiently and affordable tend to not even have sidewalks, street lights, or street trees. Not only is it the just thing to do to reinvest in our core neighborhoods, but promoting more development in walkable areas in the center of the city is more financially lucrative. It brings our city closer to financial sustainability. What we're doing now is not working. Our general plan has recognized this since the 1990s. It's time now to break with the past and move towards a green and walkable future. Thanks.
We are moving on to district number 6, and we have Miss Jessica Gianola.
Yes, hi, thank you. So my name is Jessica Gianola, and I moved here almost 20 years ago to go to Chico State, graduated in public health education. Met my husband, married. Our last daughter was born in Enloe. Our previous daughter that we adopted here from Chico, she was also an Enloe baby. And I have been working in the community with nonprofits. I'm a housing case manager working with campfire survivors. I have a lived experience as living unhoused through my youth, and I'm on a state board for housing research. And I feel I'm an appropriate person at this time to tackle our homeless crisis that we have.
Thank you very much for your opening statement. All right, I'm now going to have Tom. So Tom?
Good evening. I'm Tom Van Overbeck. This election is about what kind of town we want. Chico's quality of life has literally been trashed because we've allowed homeless people to occupy our public spaces. It is obvious that this has been a disaster for the city and a disaster for them. They die at 5 times the rate of the general population. Camping in public spaces cannot be allowed, period. There are available shelters and the homeless must use them. If I'm elected, my first priority will be to continue to reclaim our public spaces and keep them safe.
Thank you. We have Nicole Nava from District 4. She was unable to participate. She has a prior engagement that she is at this evening. So we are going to go ahead and play Nicole Nava's opening statement.
My name is Nicole Nava, candidate for Chico City Council in District 4. Chico is my hometown. I've earned a business management degree, been married 34 years, and we have 2 grown children. I've had a 24-year career in social services, currently serving in a special capacity on an executive leadership team as a customer engagement manager. Plus, spent 6 years in property management and a couple owning my own business. I was a proud recipient of the Community Woman of the Year Award in 2018.
And thank you. And we have one more candidate that is not available to participate due to another engagement, and that is Miss Casey Reynolds in District 2. So for more information regarding Casey's candidate form, please visit caseyforcouncil.com. Again, that's Casey, K-A-S-E-Y, forcouncil.com. The next segment is going to be our list of questions for all of the candidates. So each candidate will have exactly 2 minutes to provide a response for the question. The first question out the gate for all of our candidates is, how will you support businesses and foster economic growth in Chico? Again, how will you support businesses and foster economic growth in Chico? And the first candidate in District 2 will be Miss Morgan Kennedy.
I think something that is really important for supporting our businesses is that I have personally noticed a deterioration in the type of patronage that businesses are getting due to our dependence on vehicles, particularly on downtown. It's really just become this kind of drive-through area and not very friendly to, people walking around. I also think, supporting events and things like that would encourage people to walk or bike to can really be helpful. I feel like Chico is really holding on to some of those things in terms of like our farmers market and Friday night concerts. And we see how many people are attracted to our downtown area when we have the streets closed or limited. I really think that should be a more common occurrence. There are plenty of other routes around that area for vehicles if people want to drive or don't want to attend. And think about just on Thursday farmers markets, how many hundreds more people are downtown supporting those businesses than they are when we're, it's just a regular day and we're all speeding through there, at 40 miles an hour. So I think making events like that more walkable and bikeable, and also expanding that into other areas of town can really be supportive of our businesses here in Chico. And that is my answer.
Thank you. Thank you, Morgan, so much. Now we will move on to district number 3. The first candidate up for district number 3 is Dale Bennett.
I have been for over 44 years in my capacity as a asset manager, regional shopping center management, bringing in tenants, new retail activity. That definitely is supporting business, and it is economic growth. So I've been doing that for a long time. I have been on the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, which is a great organization for economic growth and supporting businesses. I've been on the Downtown Chico Business Association Board of Directors, treasurer for quite a few years. And that's another avenue I have used to support businesses in downtown Chico specifically. I have also been involved with the Chico History Museum, another activity for supporting business. And most of all, I think as a member of the city council, when opportunities have arrived where we could support business, where we could generate additional economic growth, we have chosen to make the right decisions at the right time to move businesses forward. So it's been an ongoing activity for me for many, many years. And again, I go back to my experience in the business community. It's nothing new. We need to continue it. And as a member of the city council, I will continue my assertive efforts to help the business community to survive. And it's important that we must support our existing businesses. There's nothing more important than maintaining our current businesses, helping them to survive, to grow, and to prosper. Secondarily, we bring in new business. And that is always at the forefront of my thoughts while being on the city council, and I will continue in that effort. Thank you.
And thank you, Dale. We are now going to ask that Monica McDaniel in District Number 3. And Monica, I will restate the question and then yield the floor to you. And then they will start the timer. So Monica, so how will you support businesses and foster economic growth in Chico?
Thanks for asking, Corinne.
You're welcome.
In my experience of living in Chico, I've done many things. I mentioned I was a leader in nonprofit organizations, but my business background in Chico is that I've managed large businesses. I managed a large downtown business, and I also opened and managed a large big box store out by the mall. And I've seen in my experience a difference of clientele, a difference of business practices. There are people who like to shop and focus on downtown. There are also different people who like to focus on the mall and that part of town. But how would I support economic growth? As I would like to see more economic tourism. I think that Chico is a great place, and there's a lot of tourism that already happens for here in Chico. Last weekend during the Wildcat Weekend, the DCBA collaborated with by doing the Art and Wine Walk. There were 10,000 people in Chico that weekend. All the hotels were filled. I'm sure all the businesses flourished. And I would like to see more of that. Kind of like what Morgan said in terms of more events that bring people to Chico. I would like to see seasonal events that bring people to Chico, not just for certain times of the year, but for different periodic quarters of the year, so that those businesses, both downtown and the big box stores, get a boost. And that's one big way I would like to see businesses supported in Chico, is more economic tourism. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. And we're moving on now to District Number 4, Addison Winslow. How will you support businesses and foster economic growth in Chico?
So the greatest economic development constraint we face in Chico, hands down, is the shortage of housing, in particular affordable housing for working class people. Business owners can't just raise wages beyond what they're bringing in, but we can, as a city, make a concerted effort to bring down the cost of living so that wages go further for people, so they can retain their employees and can get employees from other areas. That means just allowing housing in different places, removing governmental constraints, and when our local government does have funds to apply to new housing growth, that we put those in the right areas near centers of employment, so people are able to access those more easily. We also have an issue with commercial rents being too high. This is what I described seeing vacant commercial buildings downtown, or for example, the Kmart. Businesses as tenants aren't able to cover those costs. One thing that helps with that is a vacancy tax. It's not so much a measure to try and bring income into the city through the tax itself, but it incentivizes the owners of these properties to seek a more fair deal and allow a tenant to occupy that space and hold a sustainable business up. Broadly through the city, we have these regional centers like the mall, and they deal with, you have one vacancy and it can leave a huge blighted area. I don't think those are the best places to be supporting businesses. I think we should be focusing in downtown and in mixed use neighborhood centers, which is something that's been called for in Chico's general plan since the 1990s. But we haven't really seen happen because we've been so resistant to change in our neighborhoods. We haven't allowed the growth to occur that would allow these mixed use areas to flourish in different neighborhoods. And I think we should be reviewing our zoning and using the resources we have strategically to encourage the growth of those sort of things, so people have businesses within walking distance of them that is more efficient for the city and more sustainable environmentally.
And thank you, Addison. Thank you so much, representing District Number 4. We're now going to move on to District Number 5. We have Jessica representing District Number 6. How will you support businesses and foster economic growth in Chico?
As a former business owner, I owned my own business for 10 years until the impacts of COVID just completely wiped it out. And so I understand the importance of support when it comes to surviving and being able to sustain your business and support your family. And so I would like to be able to have outreach with our business owners in Chico and communicating with them and asking them what their needs are and concerns are, and then targeting certain areas within our city, like one section at a time. If there's a need that's in common, then we can put resources towards that so that their businesses flourish. It's just like for sustainability. And things like roads or sidewalks, having benches that are more spaced out downtown or in shopping areas help where people can stop and rest for a minute and enjoy the view and enjoy things around them. They'll spend more time out there. And having plenty of garbage cans out there it's spaced out where people can have garbage and not anywhere on the ground. And I do love this multi-use idea that we should be moving towards. So just like people who have homes and may need to rent out a room or ADU for survival, if they're trying to economically survive these trying times right now, I think businesses can have the opportunity too. If they had a multi-use zoning for where their business is running and they had a unit that they could rent out, and that helps with survival of a small business owner, I would support that as well. So it's just connecting with the people in our community and seeing what their needs are, and trying to put yourself in their shoes, which I can, and thinking what would I like or need to make my business survive and offer that up for our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are now going to move to the next candidate in District Number 6. We have Tom Van Overbeck. So Tom, how will you support businesses and foster economic growth in Chico?
Thank you. So I started my first business when I was 21 years old in Davis, where I went to school, and have either owned or run businesses my entire life, and I'm currently a business owner in Chico. And so the quality of life, businesses like to be in places that are nice places to live because the owners want to live in a nice place and the employees want to live in a nice place. So it helps recruitment. I have a particular focus in downtown, so I want to talk about some things related to downtown. So we had homeless people camped in our plaza in front of our city council chambers. And I know of 2 cases where landlords had leases, verbal commitments to leases. The agents had worked the deals out. They got to town, saw the plaza, and said, "If you can't run your city better than this, I don't want to put my business here." And they lost the deal. There are 12,000 people students enrolled in the university right now, which is down from 18,000. And I can tell you, my son graduated here in the 90s, and if I had driven into town and seen the campers in the plaza, he would have gone to school someplace else. So it's had a huge impact. I really like the idea of having more walkable and bikeable downtown, I think there's some streets that could be turned into pedestrian zones on the weekends. And there's some other things that we could do related to that. But the downtown is such a special place, and it really is one of the things that defines the city. And so we have to, in particular, pay attention to that. And I think making it more walkable and bikeable is critical. But, you know, when I used to ride my bike downtown, I stopped doing it because I got stolen. And nobody's going to ride their bike downtown if there are people walking around with bolt cutters. So we need to, the homelessness is the key to this whole thing.
Thank you. And we're going to go on to question number 2. So question number 2, Morgan, is how will you address the CalPERS unfunded liability?
I am probably going to keep this very short and sweet because I very much stand with union workers. I think that there are a few things that we could do to address how underfunded our CalPERS are. Number one of which would be cost sharing with employers. But other than that, I would really just want to get my hands on the city budget and hopefully redirect some erroneous spending. I feel like our current council has been really fiscally irresponsible, and it's not only costing our CalPERS employees, it's costing our whole city and our whole quality of life to really deteriorate. So I think that that would be my number one, would be to defer to union leaders and to really examine the budget to find out how we can move things around and make sure that people are getting their pay and benefits that they've worked for.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Morgan. Now we will go ahead and move to district number 3. The next candidate will be Dale Bennett. So Dale, how will you address the CalPERS unfunded liability?
As a member of the city council, we have been addressing the unfunded liability, and it is being managed as best it can. There is no way to go backwards with what has happened with the economy, and this happened a number of years ago when the investments by CalPERS did not work out well at all. There grew a large unfunded liability, and nobody could do anything about it. It was a fact of life due to the economic situation at that time. The city of Chico and its staff of Chico have done a great job in addressing the unfunded liability, and they will continue to do so. They are a great group of people. They do an excellent job, and I respect them immensely. So in 2043, if everything goes according to plan, the unfunded liability will cease to exist. Whether or not that happens depends on the economy, and none of us know exactly what's going to happen with that respect. So I believe that the city is doing an excellent job, the best job they can to take care of the unfunded liability. And we just concluded a number of negotiations with the 9 unions of the city, and they have received the appropriate increases such that they are in a better position, and everything goes back to the economy, how much money is available. But I think the city has done a very, very good job, a very fair job in increasing and rewarding the staff members and all of the employees that work for the city of Chico. We should all be very respectful and appreciate the employees of Chico.
Thank you very much, Dale. We are now moving on to Monica McDaniel in district number 3. So how will you address the CalPERS unfunded liability?
Thank you for asking. The CalPERS unfunded liability has been an issue in Chico for a number of years. The city was on the brink of bankruptcy several years ago. The first step was to stop the bleeding and to bring everything back down. Lots of cuts and changes were made at that time, and the budget has recovered from since then, but there still is this liability, and that's why it's one of the questions tonight. One way that I can see to help to take care of that liability is the passing of Measure H. We need more funds in the city to be able to allocate to a variety of things, but especially to support our union workers and the service workers that take care of our city. And so that is important in terms of bringing in revenue and then continuing to balance the budget so that the expenditure for retirement is taken care of, and so that our city workers are taken care of. The unions are the people, and the unions, the police and the fire and the city staff are all people who take care of our city, and it's important to take care of them and to have attractive packages so that they continue to stay in the city and that we can attract talent in all of those places and keep that talent here. So it's important to be able to offer them a generous package. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you so much. Now we're going to be moving forward to district number 4, Addison Winslow. So the question is, Addison, how will you address the CalPERS unfunded liability?
What I emphasize in my platform is how we can support redevelopment and allow redevelopment to see properties improved and reassessed so we get a substantial increase in tax revenue off these places without adding new infrastructural burdens for the city to maintain. So I don't have a lot of interest in looking for new austerity measures in any department. I want to see the city increase our funds in order to support the employees and services and that we have. We, as a public agency, have a responsibility to treat our employees well, make sure that people who are employed with the city are able to take care of themselves and live in the city. And that's currently not happening. If you talk to public works employees, you'll learn that over half of them don't live in the city as a result of the cost of living and because their wages do not compare with some other city employees. What I do have an issue with is the practice of exaggerating the salaries for upper management. And we consistently are seeing pay increases that outpace the economy, outpace inflation, outpace the rest of the city employees. And we shouldn't be putting that much emphasis on just the top tiers of management. The way that they hired the city manager and gave him almost like back pay in terms of benefits as if he'd been the city manager for years already. When we're looking at paying people a lot more than just enough to be able to get by as we pay some employees, it should be a question of employee retention, and we need to determine how much do we really need to pay in order to keep people staying here. I don't think that we're doing that appropriately when it comes to the upper management. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Addison. All right, we are moving on to district number 6. We have Miss Jessica representing district number 6. So Miss Jessica, how will you address the CalPERS unfunded liability?
Well, as far as addressing it, like Dale mentioned, we can't do anything about how it is now. It's done. So we either are going to support our employees, our city employees, or not. So our hardworking community, they absolutely have my support in making sure that their needs are being met, and retirement is part of that package deal, along with healthcare coverage and affordable healthcare coverage and affordable wages so that they can move to Chico when they can't afford to. So I think that in the future, come 2043, when that term does end for how it was set up with how it currently is, that maybe some other ideas can be considered with retirement that might be more fiscally beneficial, or it could be more beneficial for the employees, not necessarily for the city, but a good balance is what we need. And so I think that our budget overall does need to have a lot of things looked at it and consider where our funding is going, any areas for improvement, just reassessing if we have overtime opportunities or underfunded areas, and just have a better balanced city operations going forward, and support of our employees, the hardworking people who are out there doing everyday hard work to keep our city moving forward. And I thank them very much. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you so much. We are now going to move to Tom, representing District Number 6. So how will you address the CalPERS unfunded liability, Tom?
Well, this CalPERS situation reminds me of being a passenger in a car with a drunk driver. We've had some close calls, and at some point we're going to run into something hard. The reality is that the unfunded liability that the city currently has is $150 million, which is roughly 3 times our general fund. CalPERS income, it comes from the contributions of the employer, which in this case is the city, the contributions of the employee. The employer contribution is the majority of it. And then the third is investment returns from CalPERS. And CalPERS investment returns, I was on a committee looking at pension obligation bonds as a way to maybe get out of the $150 million a little more cost effectively, which we determined was not a great idea. But in studying it, we saw that the returns that CalPERS has made over the last 20 years have only been 2/3 of what the leading indexes have been, the S&P 500, for example. So it's very poorly run, and as a result of CalPERS shortfalls, the city has to kick in an additional, this year, about $12.5 million in addition to the employee and the employer contribution, and that's increasing at $750,000 a year. When Jerry Brown was governor, he put in place something called PEPRA, which was a reform that so people retired later, they're at 57 instead of 50, and at 2.7% per year served instead of 3%. And that's starting to have an impact. So the real question is whether the PEPRA reforms will impact this thing quick enough before we run off the road and hit a tree. It's a big problem.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. We will now be moving forward to question number 3. And we're going to go ahead and Representative Morgan Kennedy from District 2. So question number 3, candidates, what is your position on the proposed 1% general sales tax increase for the city of Chico? And if the sales tax increase is approved, what are the top 3 priorities for how the funds should be spent? So I yield the floor to you and start the timer.
The way our sales tax is currently being presented is a very complicated subject, at least for me. Our city definitely needs the revenue. However, I find myself opposing Measure H due to the fact that there's no sunset clause on the measure, and also the fact that it's not allocated to anything. I really feel like there may be some nefarious reasons why our current council wants unlimited funds with no sunset, that they don't have oversight by anybody. To me, that is just totally ridiculous that we are asking the residents of our city who are already under inflation to shoulder the costs of their poor decisions for the last 4 years. So while I realize we do need that revenue, I do currently oppose it in its form, or the form that it is right now. I would be 100% behind a bond measure that was allocated to things like improving our roads, supporting city staff with livable wages, fixing our roads, things like that. And that it also had a sunset clause where voters could have a say in whether it keeps going or not. I think that those things are really imperative to keeping our city good for everybody. And the top 3 concerns that I would like to address is, number 1, infrastructure, particularly in District 2. Our roads are literally crumbling. My personal street has over 30 potholes on it. This seems to happen in working class and lower class neighborhoods exclusively at this point, which I think is just absolutely erroneous. And then I would also like to see a huge focus on our fire preparedness. I feel like we are vastly underserved when it comes to fire preparedness, especially as our climate gets more dry. And then that leads me into funding the fire department more.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you very much. Now we'll now be transitioning to district number 3, Mr. Dale Bennett. So what is your position on the proposed 1% general sales tax increase for the city of Chico? Part 2 is, if the sales tax increase is approved, what are the top 3 priorities for how the funds should be spent?
So being on the city council, I was one of the councilors that made the decision we were going to put this on the ballot to allow the citizens of Chico to make a decision. In the past, for whatever reason, the city council did not put this measure H, out to the voters so they could make a decision. And we decided it was time to allow the citizens the opportunity to decide if they want to move forward with a 1% sales tax or not. So that's why we made the decision. We made the decision to go with the way it was structured because we thought there was a better chance it would pass. So that's a little bit of background. I fully support Measure H. I fully support a 1% sales tax. The city of Chico does not have enough income, funds available to take care of some of the very important issues that people are talking about, which is fire and police, funding the fire and police personnel, as well as funding the equipment they need, roads, and the sewer system, which is off to the side, but I'd like to bring it much more to the forefront because we do have a major problem with our sewer system. I would not use one penny, not one penny of Measure H for a CalPERS contribution. That is exactly what people are concerned about. We've been hearing that for a long time, that they just think this is going to pass and we're going to use it for CalPERS to fund the unfunded liability. I would not do that. I would not do that ever. So, and we are one, Chico is one of the 8 communities, over 50,000 people in California that does not have a sales tax measure. So it's time we decided and move forward with additional funds so the city of Chico can continue to be as we would like to see it.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you for your statement. We'll be moving on to candidate Monica McDaniel in district number 3. So Monica, what is your position on the proposed 1% general sales tax increase for the city of Chico? Part 2, if the sales tax increase is approved, what are the top 3 priorities for how the funds should be spent? Please set the timer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, I am very much in favor of Measure H. I already mentioned it. I believe that the city is due for an influx of revenue, and we need it for a variety of reasons. The big one is our roads. During political campaigns for years now, we've heard, we're going to fix the roads, we're going to fix the roads. But the problem is the city of Chico only has a $3 million availability to work on roads and infrastructure. $9 million is needed. So if Measure H passes, I think that money should go into road maintenance. I think money should go into park maintenance. We are overgrown in our wild spaces in Lindo Channel. We need to do maintenance so that we have fire preparedness, and that we need to support public safety. The police department needs to increase their personnel so that they can work on crime prevention, as opposed to just reacting to calls, so that we have a more sustainable police force, and that they're able to do expanded training and for public safety. And then we also need it for housing. We have a homeless problem, we have a housing problem, and some of those funds need to go to help support our homeless problem and to provide housing options for the entire community. So I am fully in support of Measure H, and I hope that measure passes so that the city has more revenue to help take care of ourselves, to help protect ourselves, and to help us address the homeless issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you very much for your statement. Moving on to district number 4, we have Addison Winslow. Addison, I'm going to go ahead and state the question, and then we will start the timer. So Addison, what is your position on the proposed 1% general sales tax increase for the city of Chico? And part 2 is, if the sales tax increase is approved, what are the top 3 priorities for how the funds should be spent? And start.
I support the sales tax increase. I'm not particularly happy about it. Sales taxes are a regressive tax, so low income people spend more of their income on it. And I wish we were never in the state where we have so much of a city spread out, but don't have enough money to maintain it. But I have listened to the public works presentations, the city's presentations in the state of the city, and see what a dire state we're in and how much we do need this funding immediately. So I will vote for it, and I encourage everybody to. As far as priorities for it, my screen busted up. What I see on the yes on Measure H mailers, it says, let's see one right here: park and road maintenance, housing and public safety. The city can actually spend money on low-income housing without it going to the voters, but in general, I support those things. But with roads, I want to focus on more broadly streetscape improvements. Roads are not just, or well, our streets are not just places for people to pass through. So when I say improving our physical infrastructure, it also includes sidewalks, widening sidewalks, street trees, street lights in areas that currently lack them. And I think we should be pushing large projects and rebuilding some streets, especially ones like North Cedar, West First Avenue, Rancheria, Mechoopda, that where we have high density housing but have very poor infrastructure, areas that have been neglected for a long time. We also should be looking at these reconstruction projects to make an area substantially safer to walk and bike outside, where we'll see new redevelopment, and we can pair it up with projects that are ready, and talking to surveying property owners to make sure that when we're investing, we're getting a return as a city on our investment, because there will be tax-rich development going on in those places. So we should be using these funds strategically to make sure that we do get ourselves to a sustainable place as a city in the near future.
Thank you, Addison. Thank you for your statement. The next district that we'll be moving to is District 6. We're going to be starting with Miss Jessica. I'm going to go ahead and read the question to you, and then we will start the timer. So, Jessica, what is your position on the proposed 1% general sales tax increase for the city of Chico? If the sales tax increase is approved, what are the top 3 priorities for how the funds should be spent? And the floor is yours.
Thank you. Now, initially, my emotional response was to not support the tax measure, simply because I know how much people are struggling right now, and these are trying times, and I'm thinking, how in the world are people going to pay for even more expenses? And it does hit the people with a lower income harder. And then I put my counselor hat on, and looking at the city and the needs, and supporting our city workers and these unmet needs that we have in the city. And so I do support it, because those things are going to need money, and I'm hoping that the right decisions will be made to support our city. And the first things that I want to look at is housing. Housing is absolutely imperative right now, and we can hit it with different angles. The city can help with funding more TBRA vouchers, which helps reduce the amount of rent that a person is paying. So if they're, say, having to pay more in taxes, maybe they can benefit from a TBRA voucher that is helping reduce their rent and making living more affordable for them. I'd also like to see an investment in an official campground site where people can go and not be in our parks in our neighborhoods, and they would have somewhere safe that they can go if they were unhoused and we don't have yet the housing available for them. So those are areas right there. That's the 2 areas. And then for fire prevention, I would like to see some sort of community defensible space program developed, so people who need to have trees cut back, something that gives them more defensible space, and help them if they're in an income bracket that needs it. And supporting our fire department, we need to have 2 more fire stations and 3 more crew at least, and another truck, and that's going to take money. And also the last bit I would really want to hit on is that community engagement. Inviting the community in and doing Zoom phone calls so that we could hear their input on their needs, so then we could then better disperse the next steps.
Fine.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. And thank you, Jessica. Thank you for your statement. Tom, thank you. So the next candidate is Tom from District 6. So the question is, Tom, what is your position on the proposed 1% general sales tax increase for the city of Chico? And part 2 of that, if the sales tax increase is approved, what are the top 3 priorities for how the funds should be spent? And the floor is yours.
Thank you. So this is one of these, what kind of town do you want to have questions? I don't know anybody who is familiar with the city's budget and the various unmet needs we have who does not support Measure H. I know a lot of people who don't want to be vocal about it, but who support it quietly, and I enthusiastically support it. We don't have another choice, and the city has a structural revenue problem. So this needs to happen. The objections that people have are either because they haven't spent the time to learn about the issues, or because they don't understand that we're contractually bound. CalPERS is the big objection. Well, gee, all the money's going to go to CalPERS. Well, the same amount of money is going to go to CalPERS from the city, whether we pass this or not. The difference is that it's going to squeeze out. We're going to have even fewer firemen, firefighters, and policemen than we have today. And compensation levels are something that are done competitively. We have to pay competitive salaries in order to get good people. The last thing in the world we want is inexpensive city management, but they tend to be very expensive over time. So the uses, the first thing is that we have a set of mandated things that we have to do, and the top of that list is funding the ongoing costs of the shelter. We need to have the shelter if we're going to be able to enforce clearing our public spaces. So we don't have any choice with that. That's something we have to do. Public safety is the next priority in my mind. We only have 2/3 the number of firemen we had 15 years ago, and we have one of the lowest numbers of police per capita. Roads and infrastructure are obviously also near the top of everyone's list. The city has a lot of unmet needs, and it desperately needs this revenue.
Time. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for your statement. We will now be transitioning to question number 4. It will be the same format. I will review this question. Morgan Kennedy from District number 2 will be the first candidate that will be responding to this question. So question number 4 is a statement and then a question. So Chico's quality of life is impacted by homelessness, housing, and public safety personnel shortages, and deferred road maintenance. How will you address these quality of life issues, budgetary shortfalls, and what is your number one priority?
I will start off by saying that my number one priority is affordable housing. I think it's quite ridiculous that a lot of our current leadership wants to be talking about homelessness, but then we have nowhere for low-income people to live. So where are we expecting them exactly to end up? Bottom line is that a lot of people who are from here, myself included, come from a working class background, and that used to be able to get you a place to rent, or if you were lucky enough, a place to buy. But at the end of the day, now there is nowhere for you to go when you have such little income. So I think that has become a huge issue in terms of that we're only building above moderate in terms of affordability when it comes to housing. And I also think that needs to be planned out for people to not just be able to access their housing, but to have grocery stores and walkable neighborhoods. I also think that really a huge issue with our homelessness comes down to the fact that as a case manager myself, it is very difficult to get into the current shelter we have. We have ended up in court over discriminating against people getting into the pallet shelter. I'm just not sure why we are so absorbed currently with our government in doing, political performance art or theater to prove how unworthy these people are that are living on the streets to be sheltered and to be fed and to have water. I think these are basic human rights, and that it shouldn't be an elusive or mysterious process to get help when you're actively seeking it. I can say, being an advocate for those people, that it is not a myth at all, and it should end immediately.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you for your statement. We will now be moving to District number 3, Mr. Dale Bennett for District number 3. I will go ahead and state the question, and then we will start the timer, Dale. So the question is, Chico's quality of life is impacted by homelessness, housing, and public safety personnel shortages. and deferred road maintenance. How will you address these quality of life issues, budgetary shortfalls, and what is your number one priority?
That's a great question. And yes, the issues, the quality of life is a perception. And most of us have the perception that we would like to have the quality of life we used to have. That's not going to happen. We can't turn back the clock, but we can make good decisions, good, thoughtful decisions on moving forward to create a better atmosphere for all of us, for all of the citizens of Chico. So in response to your question, homelessness is causing problems. As another person referred to, it has caused economic problems because of a loss of business issue. And I'm familiar with that particular situation. But roads is a number one complaint by people because it's so apparent. As you drive your car, you hit a bump, you hit a pothole, it's apparent. Homelessness is an issue that we need to keep focusing on. We're managing it now. It was out of control for quite a few years. Now it's under control. And as a member of the city council, I have participated in measures to create a manageable environment. And as we move forward, yes, we are going to have expenses with the pallet shelter as well as other shelters, and we need to fund those. My number one priority would be life safety, what I call life safety, which is supporting the Chico Police Department, Chico Fire Department, so we have a good, reasonable expectation of quality of life, which is feeling safe. It's all about feeling safe. Then, of course, roads, the sewer system, and there's a variety of other issues. The parks is another item. So we need to pass Measure H. We need to pass Measure H.
And time. Thank you, Dale. Thank you for your statement. We will now be moving to Monica for District 3. The question is, Chico's quality of life is impacted by homelessness, housing, and public safety personnel shortages and deferred road maintenance. How will you address these quality of life issues, budgetary shortfalls, and what is your number one priority?
So the budget shortfall was, I think, the key part of that question I heard. I heard a lot of people talking about what their priorities would be, but addressing the budget shortfalls, we already talked about Measure H. I already talked about economic tourism, creating new funding revenues, creating new avenues of funding, supporting the avenues of funding that are already existing. But I also would be interested in creative avenues of funding that would help to address the budget shortfalls, including bonds for the roads, collaborating with the county and even the state if we need to get funding specifically for homelessness, figuring out other ways to pay for things than just the new increase of revenue, because that's going to get absorbed by a lot of Chico's needs right away. And then the other part of the question on the onset was about quality of life. So for me, the priorities have to do with public safety and its multifacets. So public safety isn't just about having a quality police force and having enough staffing on the police force, but it's also about having enough staffing and resources available for the fire department. We know we need at least one new fire department in the north end of town. We might need another one in another part of town as Chico develops. But we also need infrastructure support. And we talked about roads, but we haven't talked about lights and sidewalks and other things that actually make the public safe too. Another thing that would be important to me is housing, affordable housing for people who can own their homes as opposed to being caught up in rent, and then housing for the homeless people. There's a lot of already existing agencies, seeing collaboration among those agencies to help address that homeless problem for the people that haven't chosen to use already existing city services. All of that comes together to support our quality of life, to make our town more safe, and to make our town more clean and more beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you so much for your statement. Now we're going to be moving on to District number 4 with Addison. So Chico's quality of life is impacted by homelessness, housing, and public safety personnel shortages and deferred road maintenance. How will you address these quality of life issues, budgetary shortfalls, and what is your number one priority?
I'm sometimes put off by the way that the term quality of life is used. We talk about a quality of life issue being seeing people on the street. It's much worse being a person on the street, especially when it comes to winter time. So we create this little like division of interest. Well, it's been a long struggle against the city council that we have right now, but by now it should be abundantly clear for everybody that it's in everybody's interest for us to be providing safe, easily accessible places for people to sleep that are outside the parks, places with bathrooms and trash service, so we can mitigate these effects, both allowing people just to have a safe place to be, and that tremendously increases the situation for them, and then for everybody who affected in other ways by homelessness, in particular issues like trash, that can be resolved like immediately. And I think we're there, and I think we should be we should be making sure that there is enough resources there. That we are not there because the pallet shelter is not easily accessible. You can't just walk in there or apply and get in. So we still have people camping dispersed around the city. It is certainly not a situation that is being managed. What's my priority in the big picture? Very big question here. I would like to see like a unity of addressing these issues, which, as I mentioned before, is developing better, investing in more financially and environmentally efficient spaces, public spaces. Housing, investing in housing, or investing in improvements that will allow housing to grow up in places where we already provide infrastructure, but especially mixed use with commercial on the bottom, so that we have even greater amount of revenue coming through this, so that we can address these issues in the long term, not just to be struggling with a new sales tax increase and with like our current budget shortfalls.
Thank you, Addison. Thank you very much. So now we are going to be moving on to district number 6. We have Miss Jessica. So Chico's quality of life is impacted by homelessness, housing, and public safety personnel shortages and deferred road maintenance. How will you address these quality of life issues and budgetary shortfalls? And what is your number one priority?
Well, honestly, with our shortfalls and how do we address them, we need to face our major issues at a prevention-based method. So preventing homelessness where we can, and getting at that root cause of many of the issues that we have in the city that are of concern. They're surrounded by housing. So if we are working towards housing folks, more TBR vouchers, the lower income-based housing, transitional housing, opening access to shelters instead of preventing people in, and not blaming them as victims of circumstance. I think that we need to own that these are our people in our area, and know that verbiage counts when we're calling them transients or angry with the evidence of our reality. That's not helpful. And we need to do what we can to get people housed, because that's how we get our parks safer. That's how we reduce our risk of wildfire. That's how we have cleaner spaces. All of those pieces are impacted, and so that saves money down the road when we are adequately planning for the people of our community. And we have a quarter of our population that's low income. We need to have a quarter of our housing that's low income, and not just low income, but affordable income. So when we get people housed, we have less of those crime occurrences happening. We have less petty theft because people are not in survival mode, and they're trying to make ends meet. So if they have the basic necessities met, we see reduction in crime, fire, unpleasant things to look at, and experiences, because people are, when they're in this frame of mind of survival, they may act in ways that we typically wouldn't act, and that can be dangerous for the community. So housing is absolutely number one, because then the other pieces fall in line. We'll have the money that'll then be available for our roads and other services that we absolutely need now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Thank you for your statement. We will now be moving to the next candidate in District 6, and that will be Tom. Tom, I'm going to go ahead and read the question to you, and then we will start the clock. So Tom, Chico's quality of life is impacted by homelessness, housing, and public safety personnel shortages and deferred road maintenance. How will you address these quality of life issues, budgetary shortfalls, and what is your number one priority?
So, we've talked a lot about already homelessness and public safety. The number one thing we can do to impact the quality of life is pass Measure H. But before we move on from homelessness, I would point out the last candidate suggested that we look at the root cause of homelessness, and I think that's a great idea. And I would start with asking ourselves why we have 4 times as many homeless in California as Texas and 3 times as many as Florida, and we have half of the unhoused homeless people in the country in California, and that's a policy issue which we need to address. But I want to talk about housing because I know something about housing. I'm actually built, I think I'm the only person in this forum that's actually built multifamily and single family housing. So I understand the economics of it and the issues of it. And in Chico, we do need more affordable housing, but we need more of all types of housing. So just because a development doesn't have enough affordable housing doesn't mean we should not build more middle income housing. We have a problem with Chico in that we built the town out a cul-de-sac at a time, and we need to have a 50-year planning horizon where we really ask ourselves what kind of a town do we want to have. And all the proposals about creating a new golden line on the east side of town and not building new housing, some of my opponents talk about the need for housing, but then they oppose every single effort to build housing. If we don't manage the supply of housing in an intelligent way, the prices will go up. This is what happened in Davis. In Davis, the same house that you buy in Chico for $450K, which is, you could call that 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1,400 square feet, is $1 million in Davis. And that's because in 2020, they passed Measure L, which made it basically impossible to build new housing. And I'm out of time.
And thank you, Tom, for your statement. We are now going to be migrating to the next part of the forum, which we were going to go into the closing statements by district. So the first candidate that will be up will be Morgan Kennedy for district number 2.
Bottom line is that it's time for a change for Chico. I think we've really seen the deterioration of our quality of life, the deterioration of our city due to our current council. And I really don't think we can afford another 4 years of them. We've been in court. We've violated people's constitutional rights. We need people with compassionate and innovative ways and creative ideas to fix our city. And I hope you'll vote for me.
Thank you very much, Morgan. The next candidate that we have up is Dale.
I'm going to go back to what I've preached somewhat. Experience provides knowledge. Experience provides understanding, wisdom, patience, and skills. A lack of experience often ends up with poor results. I am proud that while I've been on the city council, we have successfully recaptured areas in downtown, around the city plaza, and many other areas, and I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Ms. Monica, thank you. Go ahead and start your closing remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I've lived in Chico for 30 years. I'm a Chico State graduate. I am serving my 5th term on the Chico's Art Commission, and I am a collaborative leader. I believe that effective leadership means listening to your constituents, relevant stakeholders, city staff, and the people who know of how to get things done. And I want to help turn the wheel of progress for Chico using my collaborative leadership. Please vote for McDaniel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Monica. We're going to go ahead and migrate to district number 4. If we could have Addison.
We need good people and good ideas. The ideas that I'm talking about, I've been working on for years. I've worked as an environmental assessor. I've been hired to review our housing plan. I've worked as an outreach coordinator in homeless encampments with Safe Space and True North Housing Alliance, and worked for a long time with Chico Housing Action Team. And for the last, for 2020 and 2021, the Chico News and Review included me in their Local Heroes edition, which is quite flattering. So I'm looking forward to working with many of the people that are on this panel here. Thanks.
Thank you, Addison. Thank you very much. So the next candidate that we have in district number 4 is Nicole Nama. Nicole has presented a video that we are going to go ahead and play.
have ideas to generate revenue that include unifying our community and growing Chico's economic vitality. I will prioritize failing infrastructure, public safety, and work collaboratively to address workforce housing and homelessness challenges. Bringing in new business and retaining residents means addressing these issues. I will continue working with city and community partners to attract better paying jobs while creating a business-friendly environment. That's why both local businesses and labor support me. I would be honored to earn your vote November 8th.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are now moving on to district number 6, and we have Miss Jessica. Miss Jessica, you are up for your closing remarks.
Thank you. So with housing costs, location. So that's going to drive what your housing costs are. And the San Jose Bay Area, I mean, they're catering to the San Francisco area, the Bay Area. Chico, we had a campfire here and wiped out almost all of our affordable housing up there on the ridge. So that's why our prices are higher. And when we build, we need to build for the people who live here, the people who have the lower incomes, the people we need to focus all of our energy and focus on. I'm out of time. I love Chico.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jessica. We appreciate your closing statements. And now we're going to move on to the final candidate in district number 6, which is Tom.
So there's a clear choice in this election. Do you want to continue to restore Chico's quality of life, or do you want to go back to homeless campgrounds in Bidwell Park? It's that simple. The chaos and squalor that comes from the homeless camping in our public spaces is not inevitable. If you want to fix it, you need to vote for candidates like me, whose priority is the welfare of the 99.5% of Chico's inhabitants who want the quiet enjoyment of Chico's public spaces.
Thank you very much. So first and foremost, we want to thank each and every one of you for your presentation this evening, candidly asking the tough questions that were proposed to you. You all did an outstanding, fabulous job. We appreciate you and your responses and your commitment and dedication to our community. In closing, we would like to take this opportunity to thank each candidate for participating in today's forum and our community members for tuning in to this live broadcast. The Chico Chamber of Commerce is truly honored to serve as an advocate and the voice of business in our community. So I also want to let you know that the recording of this event will be accessible on the Chico Chamber of Commerce YouTube channel, and the link will be posted on our website at chicochamber.com. And again, thank you all, the community members and candidates, for joining us this evening. And a reminder to please vote on Tuesday, November 8th. And this concludes the Chico Chamber of Commerce 2022 City Council Candidate Forum. Thank you for your participation, and everybody have an outstanding evening.